And there we go. And we're live. Episode 7. Good evening, everybody. Thousands of people viewing worldwide, I'm assuming. Swally Sweet with the CUSF here. With me, as always, is Dave the President.
Howdy, howdy.
Just want to give a quick, before I forget, where you can find our podcast. We're streaming live right now on YouTube, on our Facebook group, and and what was the second page that we have there? The University Shooting Club, right?
Yeah, well, that's the group.
Okay.
So it's just live in the group. And
you can also find us on Spotify and on all the Apple sites now as well. Just search Down the Barrel with the CUSF, and we should come up there. And also on YouTube and Facebook under Canadian University Shooting Federation. And we've got two guests with us tonight, Sean and Rooster.
Howdy, howdy.
You guys are from First Focal Plane?
Yes, sir.
The first Focal Plane podcast.
First Focal Plane podcast. And make sure we give you some time at the end there to promote that as well. Dave, how's the organization doing? We got any new business for today?
yeah, so first off, I'd like to thank all of our sponsors, the Cabela's Outdoor Fund, our premier sponsor, Beretta, as well as Vortex Optics, and Stittsville Shooting Ranges out of Ottawa. So without their contribution, we wouldn't be able to subsidize our student events. We wouldn't be able to really run effectively as we do as an organization. So yeah, big thanks for them for supporting us. Yeah, so in terms of new business, I guess it's been a while since our last podcast. Yeah, we ended up canceling our rifle competition there because of COVID. I guess postponing to like April, May-ish. So hopefully that'll come off at that point. And yeah, in big news here, we got conditionally approved for our registered Canadian Amateur Athletic Association status. So nice. That it essentially turns us into a charitable organization. The federal government recognizes that we're solely committed to sports shooting at the university level. And yeah, just kind of minor organizational changes where we'll be spinning off the conservation and our scholarship programs into a separate CUSF foundation. So that
charity means people can give us money, right?
Yeah, and get tax receipts. So you awesome. A, give us money, and B, don't give money to the government. So I think it's a win-win.
The government option. Alcohol abuse. Nice. Well, we're growing by leaps and bounds, and we got some high rollers on as guests tonight. First Focal Plane. I was going to talk about First Focal Plane, the actual thing, and also First Focal Plane, the podcast. What is your podcast? What do you guys talk about?
Well, I guess I'll take this, Kurt. So we cover everything in regards to firearms owners, not just in Canada, but I'd say in North America and around the world as well. Mm-hmm. Mainly, we've been focused on precision long range shooting and precision competitions and gear and people involved. But we also have had various celebrities come on. We've had Quick Dick McDick from Saskatchewan, the Minnesota Millennial Farmer. On YouTube there, he's a big ag guy. Various individuals that are involved in firearms one way or another throughout North America. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And it's just a free-floating conversation where we have fun and we curse a lot. And yeah, that's right. And you know, kind of have a conversation and a more light take on how firearms are not just in Canada but the world. So. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, Dave, when we first sat down to talk about doing a podcast and then eventually video, we picked a lot from you guys. Dave showed me the episode of you guys that he was on, and then he showed me the episode of Slamfire Radio. Shout out Slamfire Radio. That he was on there, and we kind of pull a little bit ideas and what we liked. Like the alcohol was a thing that we were inspired by you guys. And yeah, cheers. What are you drinking?
I'm drinking proper 12 tonight.
Oh, whiskey?
Yes, sir.
Nice. And David?
Alberta Premium, of course.
Okay, there we go. John?
I'm doing the Russian Prince vodka with Diet Sprite because I'm trying not to be a big fat guy anymore. So
What's wrong with that?
I tell myself that every time I don't go to McDonald's or anything like that.
Don't listen to the haters. What the hell was I talking about? What was
Inspiration. Inspiration in your podcast.
No, it was before that. Fuck, this is already off the rail. We're like 5 minutes. Shooting.
First focal plane the thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Podcast. Okay. Yeah, podcast. Okay, so the other first focal, I just did a little bit of reading about this. I'm a pretty new shot. I've had my PAL about 2 or 3 years. I have some gun experience previously. In a past life, I was in the military back home, and I was a correctional officer here for a little bit as well. But as far as civilian stuff, I'm pretty new to most things. So a lot of the questions that I'm asking, it's not for the benefit of the viewers or listeners. It's also for my benefit because I have no fucking idea what I'm talking about most of the time. I just smile and.
That's, you know what? That's a decent approach, anyways.
That's half the battle, man. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So I was reading about the first focal plane. There is such a thing as a first focal plane and a second focal plane, right?
Correct. In terms of, and more specifically, those terms are involved in optics and rifle scopes.
Right. And today's episode, long distance shooting, and most people prefer a long distance rifle to have a decent scope.
Yes.
Right.
Kind of essential for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say kind of essential. I would say it's just as essential, if not more, than the actual tube in action that you're using. So,
sure.
Yeah.
Well,
you can't hit what you can't see, or at least
100%.
Or at least the odds of hitting it are somewhat
diminished.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So we've at previous episode we've had hunters on and we talked about rifle to scope ratios as far as how much money to spend. 1 to 1, 2 to 1, twice as much for the glasses for the bang stick.
Well, it's so hard to really put a hard number to because there's so much choice out in the market right now, and you know what? There's a lot of scopes coming out that are more budget friendly, I guess, that actually do have decent glass. And there's some, especially when you get into hunting rifles, there's a lot of cheaper rifles out there now that shoot well. So, you go and spend $500 or whatever they are on a base Savage or a Remington 783 or something like that. And if you spend twice the money on a scope, you get $1,000 scope. And there's lots out there that for $1,000, lots of scopes out there that you can that are really good for that kind of money. Mm-hmm. Once you get into higher end stuff, like if you get into $1,000 rifle or something like that, and you spend $2,000 on a scope, man, you're flying high. So in that respect, you spend $1,000 on a rifle, you could just as easily spend that same $1,000 on a scope and really be off to the races.
But there's no magic ratio or magic number. It's all based on personal preference, because for what works for Kurt might not work for me, and what works for me might not work for Dave, and vice versa, right? Yeah. So it's a lot of trial and error, but you can set aside X amount of dollars for a budget, and then you could easily go over that, or you can easily go under it. It's just a matter of how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, because I think a lot of people, they don't realize just how expensive scopes are. I think it's just the rifle's the thing. A lot of my examples are from the motorcycle world. I ride a motorcycle, and a lot of people will budget, like I'm gonna budget $4,000 for my first motorcycle, and then they find one for however much. They wiggle on the price a little bit, and then now I have $75 left to buy a helmet, riding boots, riding jacket, riding gloves, right? Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people will blow their wad on the rifle and not realize how essential a good.
I think that is pretty common for sure. Yeah, we get the rifle that we want, and then just whatever we have left over goes into the scope.
Because I mean, how often do you see on gun pages on Facebook, people are like, oh, rifle porn, right? But you never see the same for scopes.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Well,
not as much.
Yeah.
But still.
Yeah, like on the main groups and pages, you'll see, like you said, the gun porn, but what you don't see is what goes into that. And, when, like for me, I'm just getting into the precision long range game. I've been at it for maybe a year now. And I'm still, not only am I still learning, and I will continue to learn for the next decade, but it's still like, oh shit, I need to buy this, or I need to get this that I didn't account for, or I didn't, get the proper projectiles for my load, or whatever the case may be. And that's where I really want to harp on finding a mentor for this, because Kurt, I've leaned on Kurt so hard in the last, year and a half, 2 years, that I wouldn't know what to do with them, and I'm very lucky because not everyone has that mentor, but I would highly recommend finding that mentor. So if you're, a member of a range, start going to events, start showing up and finding the guy that or gal that might, be the best fit for you, and start asking them questions. Hey, Mr. Whatever, Mrs. Whatever, I'm just getting into this. What do you recommend? Because you're going to learn a lot from their mistakes, right? Because there's a lot of that where it's like, oh, I bought this, but I didn't need it and it didn't work for me. And so maybe you can learn, like Kurt, how many thousands of dollars have I saved? Just calling or texting you or whatever and saying, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. He's like, you're a fucking idiot, Sean. Don't do this.
No.
So, yeah. So,
no, that is. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, so I was gonna say, in terms of breaking in, then, like, say, can't find a member, you're a mentor, you don't know somebody at your local range. Like, is there any online resources or like any of those? Like, there's all those courses out there, right, for long range shooting. Anything that you guys recommend? Are they garbage? You better off going and learning yourself.
Well, I can definitely add a few things. One thing that I'm a huge proponent of is what I call YouTube University. YouTube is a huge resource of knowledge, and it might not be the right knowledge, but it's a huge resource of accurate information from people like Kirk and like myself and like you guys that have gone down the path and have documented it so that people can learn. Like, the first thing I do when I buy a new gun, whether it's a pistol, rifle, gas gun, whatever it is I go to YouTube and I disassemble that thing completely down to its pins, screws, and springs, and then put it back together because I want to see what makes it tick. Well, I can't do that with a paper manual, right? And it's easy to see, guys that, right, and gals that have done it and that have documented it. So that it's just step by step. You can pause it, you can take your own time, you can do what you want. I'd say YouTube University is a big thing, but also Canadians have a huge resource, and kind of play this by ear a bit, but Canadian Gun Nuts, the forum is huge, and you can ask questions, but there's already a lot of threads out there that are going to answer the majority of questions, if not all the questions that you all already have. Now, there's going to be trolls on there, and it's just like any internet place. There's going to be trolls that are going to be like, oh, why would you do this? And man, you're retarded and blah, blah, blah. Take that with a grain of salt, but that's one aspect you're going to expose yourself to, and not just on Canadian Gun Nuts, but on the social media as well. So,
yeah, you got to be able to wade through the shit, so to speak, when you're on a lot of these internet forums. There's a lot of good information out there, but you have to be able to disseminate what a few guys are claiming, saying whatever, versus what the majority claim or proclaim. If there's only a couple of guys saying something, it's probably not right. I don't know how you sift through all that stuff really well unless you have a good foundation in the first place. But like Sean says, it is a great place to start. You just kind of have to be careful with what advice you do take on some of those forums. Every forum can be toxic to a degree, but there's lots.
I've taken a laptop into the garage once or twice when I've been working on bikes, because same thing. YouTube is the best mechanic that I know. Yeah. But that being said, and I've told people, like, I've helped at BCIT teach some of the motorcycle foundation, or not foundation, but some of the weekend courses, because I'm friends with the instructor. And I tell people, you're going to YouTube something, and I'm sure the same thing's true in the gun world. Make sure you see it in at least two places.
Right.
Not just some guy says, oh, that must be true, right? Make sure you can verify it somewhere else, and more people have had the same experience, or before you do that.
Yeah, I think that's good policy for sure. Yeah, you bet. YouTube. There's lots of really good, reputable guys doing shooting videos and that.
Any names you want to drop specifically to as far as long distance shooting, or channels off the top of your head?
Hundreds.
Well, Yeah, there's lots. 6.5 guys comes to mind. They're a fantastic resource. They're no, for some reason, I'm not sure why. I think it's one of the guys' health or something like that has taken a dive, but they're not doing videos anymore. But they still had a whole bunch out there.
6'5" guys.
6'5" guys. Yeah.
Okay.
6.5 space guys.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah. You talking about McDonald's earlier? I'm thinking Five Guys burgers now. 6'5" as in 6.5.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Guys like
Eric Cortina is a big
that's
one.
the guy I was trying to think of. Yeah.
He's in California. He's a sponsored shooter via Lapua.
Fantastic.
And he's a huge resource. Especially if you're reloading for precision, reloading and rolling your own ammunition. He's a huge proponent of that, and also tips and tricks when you're out on the range too to bring those groups a little tighter, right? Yeah. So, and if you're a big component of precision is reloading your own ammunition. You could use factory as well, but I would check out a lot of the YouTube pages like Gavin Tube, Ultimate Reloader.
Yes. Yeah.
Especially if you're getting started in reloading, because you don't want to dump a whole bunch of money on something you're not going to use. And, especially with reloading, there's such a rabbit hole you can go down. And the last thing you want to do is blow up a gun. I've been there, and it's not fun. It's a bad time. So, do a lot of research. And, Gavin Tube is one, Eric Cortina, 6'5" guys. Basically, any of the big channels like Military Arms Channel does some precision stuff. Mr. Guns and Gear, Slamfire Radio is a big resource too.
Yeah, you bet.
Canadian.
Yeah, Canadian. There's too many to name. It's just it's a huge resource, YouTube. So, but that's a few options to get you going, and there's thousands of hours of content on there. So.
Rob on the feed here says Frank Galley, absolutely. Sniper's Hide, yeah.
Oh yeah, somebody else here said Frank Galley, and we were talking about scopes. A couple of people mentioned Athlon.
You bet. That's basically where I was going before when I was talking about optics. You can get really good scopes.
He's going out to fart, isn't he?
Fine, see ya.
He's going out to fart.
But Athlon scopes are the best value for the money on the market right now, for sure.
So, any opinion on Vortex? Bearing in mind they're a sponsor of ours.
Oh, I probably shouldn't be showing the Athlon box.
No, go. No, whip it out. Fucking whip it out.
No. This is what I find. Everybody makes a great optic. It's all about the service behind it. So Vortex has their no questions asked warranty. Athlon has the same warranty. And there's a reason to that, but because I don't know, everybody makes a great option, and they make a inexpensive option and a high end option. Okay. But I use Athlon on mine mainly for the fact that it's a very well priced optic that gets you a lot of value. So we got this one is what I have on my PRS rig. It's an Athlon Midas TAC in 5-25 magnification by 56 millimeter objective with a mill reticle, not a mill dot reticle, but a mill reticle, just a different way of measuring adjustments. And this guy runs around $1,400 Canadian. So not cheap, but not expensive in the precision world.
1,400. I mean, that seems fair. Consider if we're talking about 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 ratio rifle to scope. That sounds. I mean, $1,000 rifle is not an expensive rifle, really.
Not so really. No.
If you got a good scope there for 1,400, that sounds like a pretty good.
Well, yeah, and everybody makes. You can go balls deep on March scopes and Night Force and Schmidt and Bender if you really want, but you're looking at between $3,000 and $5,000 for those. For those optics, but you're really going to notice the quality of glass is going to change, right? And considering if I went from a Midas TAC to a March scopes, it's going to be night and day. There's no comparison. It's like comparing apples to oranges, right?
Okay.
But
so that being said, what is the difference? What is the apples and oranges? What is the thing that you can't define? I'm asking for you to define that right now. Like if you're looking through a shit scope or a good scope, what extra $1,000 feature will that good scope have? What's going to be the difference?
Well, for me, it'll be amount of travel. especially for long range. A lot of higher end optics have a lot more travel and a lot more tactile adjustments.
Okay.
But also just quality of glass. If you're going to 1,000 yards, you're going to see a noticeable difference between a Vortex Diamondback and a Schmidt-Bender PM3 or PM5. It's just going to be crystal. It's like looking at those high-end TVs, compare, like, say, a nice Samsung Ultra High Def, whatever it is, comparative to a Dynex no-name brand $300 Amazon TV, right? It's, the difference is noticeable, and it's completely.
Yeah. There's other things like chromatic aberration. When you look through some scopes, especially inexpensive scopes, you look down range and you kind of see like a double image almost, but it's different color. That's as I understand it, chromatic aberration. It doesn't resolve an image. The other thing is cutting through, not necessarily cutting through mirage, but the ability to resolve an image through mirage. That's what you get with better glass, better coatings, and all that kind of stuff. Things like eye relief and eye relief forgiveness. The higher end scopes, the better scopes, will allow you to move just a little bit fore and aft and around a bit and still hold that image. You don't have to be dead center like on some of the more budget scopes. The other thing is dials and some of the external features, the parallax adjustment, things like that, and of course you pay more for illumination. You pay more for certain reticles, things like this. You don't get a Horus 59 reticle in a low end Vortex or something, right? Yeah.
So like in terms of if I'm like a new shooter, like trying to break into PRS, like what's kind of the bare minimum? Like what are you guys looking for in terms of like a must have for your scopes?
Well, I think the must have for me, there's such a scale of glass quality. It's hard to pinpoint, where the base is where you should be for breaking into this game. But that first focal plane ability for in a scope, or that feature in a scope, I think, especially for stuff like PRS and some of the long range games, where you need to actually measure a miss. You're off the target by 0.3 mils or something like that. You need to make that correction. And with a second focal plane scope, you have to be right on whatever magnification it is that gives you true magnification in order to measure that correctly. And you can't quickly
explain the difference. Quickly explain the difference for our viewers that might not know the difference between first and second focal plane. Like what's actually.
Swelly.
I have no fucking idea what you're talking about. I'm just like, okay, yes, very focal plane. Yes, focal plane.
With a second focal plane scope, your reticle is what it is in the image that you see. It never changes size. So your magnification goes up, your reticle stays the same. And only at one point in that magnification range on your scope will you get true how do I say this? True size of the reticle. Like if you have like what used to be really common, mil dot reticle, they're actual measurements you can use to measure a target or measure distance off that a miss off of the target or whatever. You can only do that on one specific setting on a second focal plane scope. Now with a first focal plane scope, that reticle size increases with your magnification. You turn up the magnification, your reticle gets bigger. That reticle stays true to
the objective.
True to the objective, true to size, I guess is the best way I can explain that, with magnification. So if you're on 6 power, say, you look downrange, you measure a target, and it measures, say, 2 mil wide. Mm-hmm. You crank it up to 18 power. That reticle comes with the image magnification. It's still 2 mils. Whereas with a second focal plane scope, you increase that magnification. Now it measures at a 0.5 mil. Do you kind of understand?
Gotcha.
I'm a shitty kid.
Yeah, no.
So it's like when you're looking down a first focal plane scope, 2 mil is always going to be 2 mil versus when you're looking down a second focal plane, then it's going to vary based on the amount of magnification that you're currently
correct. At. That's exactly right, Dave. Yeah.
There's a lot more fucking around, in my opinion, with the second focal plane.
It is, for sure. Yeah, you bet. And the other thing, another really big one for guys starting out, for whatever reason, it started out a long time ago. You get a minute of angle adjusted scope, so your turrets you're adjusting in quarter minute clicks or whatever. But they'd put a mil dot reticle in your scope, which is milliradians. So they don't jive at all. Get a scope with a mil reticle and mil adjustments, or minute reticle and minute of angle adjustments.
Yes.
So now, they're talking the same language.
Yeah. And what I would recommend for anyone that's just getting started, buy once, cry once. Okay. Don't go and do what I did and get, a cheap $400 optic that doesn't do the job that you think you should. Because I never asked Kurt that, hey, should I get this? It's this one's on sale on Amazon. I'm going to get it, and I'm not going to name names. But you drop $400, let's say, on an optic that you're not going to be able to use, where you could have saved that money, put it toward the $1,400 Athlon or the Vortex Razor or whatever it is, and that way, but you bought once. You're getting the pain once, and then you can move on. It's not buying and then, oh shit, I should have got something else. Then you got to buy again, and then you could have taken those $2 amounts, added them together, and got what you needed, right, at one time. And I'm a huge proponent of that because, I wouldn't say everybody makes a good optic or rifle, but it's about the service behind it. And if you do your research and save your funds and buy once, cry once, you're going to be happier than a pig in shit. So,
Mike Hynek makes a good point here on the feed. Zero stop is another really, really handy thing, especially in the PRS game where you're up and down on those dials. And you might come off a stage where you're shooting targets incrementally out to, say, 800 or 1,000 or something like that. You get off that stage, your adrenaline's still kind of there, and coming down off of that, you move on to your next stage, you move into the staging area or whatever, and you forget to dial that thing back. Well, did I go 1 revolution or 2 revolutions, and how far down do I need to come? So with a zero stop, you come down till it mechanically stops, and then your zero is somewhere up, just a mil or 2 or minute or 2 from there, right?
Gotcha.
So you know exactly where your 100-yard zero is, or wherever you did zero.
Yeah, or the outside of competition, if you're hunting with the zero stop optic as well, and you hop out, let's say you're truck hunting, and you hop out of the truck and the animal's at 300 yards, so you do your dial elevation there, and okay, you didn't take the shot. Hop back in the truck, you drive around, and next thing you know, you see a guy, another bucket, whatever, 100 yards. And then you drop out, you got that thing set to 400, and you're like, shit, we'll dial it back down to 0 and then adjust from there. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
that's a good feature. That's a good point. Thanks, Mike. All right, we touched a little bit on ammo and loads, and I was biting my tongue hard about not making dirty jokes there. But
Kurt loves hot loads. So
what I got from it was, you find a guy that looks like Rooster at your gun range and said, "Hey, would you like to help me with my loads?"
Fuck off, kid.
Yeah. And then so
Then I will show you my load.
Yeah, right. My
So-
white windowless van.
Screaming
you guys-
hot loads inside.
you guys masturbation jokes. You guys self-load? Like
Yes.
you do your own, or do you prefer to buy? You prefer to do your
I
own?
do everything by hand. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Nobody does the best. Really.
Well, and for people listening, if you're debating on should I keep buying factory ammo
Mhm.
or should I reload because it's going to save me money, you're lying to yourself. It's either way you're going to spend a pile of money because, like what I thought, because I only have a Dillon 550, okay, and that's for it's a progressive press to reload. Pistol essentially, and what I call blaster ammo. So AR-15, 3-gun ammo, that sort of thing, which I can't shoot anymore, by the way. Thank you, Trudeau. But so I've got that, but I can use it as a single stage, and I've gotten by pretty significantly with that. But
Mhm.
I could have easily saved some money and went and got a Lee single stage, for a couple $100 or $110, whatever they cost, and buy a set of dies and components and reload so I can do rifle. But it didn't fill my need. And, but if you're going to go out and say, I'm going to reload to save money, and then you end up dropping $1,500 on reloading equipment before you even rolled your first round, you're not saving money, right? It's just reloading is a tool to allow you to become more precise in what you're doing. And
it can save you some money, I suppose, if the money you save just allows you to shoot more, which is never a bad thing. But it becomes another rabbit hole again. You guys can see all these die sets in the back end behind me here. There's a fair few there. If you're able to see lower, there's boxes and boxes and boxes of bullets, and below that there's powder and properly stored, of course. You spend that if you put together everything I had, all the components I had into assembled ammunition, and you went out and bought that as assembled factory ammunition, man, it would cost you a ton. But the equipment that I have invested in all this, and all the stuff that I have on my shelf right now, I think I would have been, I think I wouldn't shoot as much if I had to buy factory ammunition. Whereas now I can shoot more. So I'm spending the same money, really, if that makes any sense.
It's not as fun anyways. I mean, it's like a hobby within a hobby.
Well, that's right.
It is. It's like building bikes, Wally, right? Like you can get into the compression ratios and you can dive as deep as you really want, and really tune that bike to your needs. Well, the same goes for reloading for pistol, for rifle, for anything. You can tune that load to get your achieved results. For example, so my precision gun, because of my lack of experience in trying to find a hand load to really bring those groups down to nothing, is minimal. And what I did is I gave my rifle to Kurt. And I said, Kurt, here's my rifle. Here's a box of bullets. Here's some brass. Here's some powder. Do the work and find me the proper load. And that's what's called a ladder test, right? So there you go. There's some data there for my gun exactly. And based on the components I gave him, he put together a few different charge weights for powder, and then tested them at 100 yards or 100 meters. I'm not sure. And then found velocities and found group sizes, etc. And then here's what you need to do, Sean. Do not deviate from this. You have a hammer, don't fuck it up, kind of thing. So, and that's where reloading kind of gets you going. Because if I would have just went out and bought Hornady, A-tip, ELD, or let's say ELD match factory ammo, there's going to be variation there, right? And variation that you necessarily can't control because you don't know what the charge weight is on that powder. You don't know the primer they used. You don't know certain things. So, yeah.
And your rifle just may not like it all that much.
That's right.
Whereas your individual rifle, when you hand load for it, you can figure out what it does like to eat. The factory doesn't necessarily know that, right?
Is it relatively easy to stay consistent when you hand load? Like, I've got no experience with this, but a lot of people say do it.
Yeah, it depends on what your.
Like, is there a fair amount of skill involved in it as well?
Yes. Yeah, you can't just sort of willy-nilly throw things together.
There's a pretty prominent meme out there with a guy who's got a reloading tray or a loading block with rifle brass in it, and he's just pouring a tub of powder into the mouths of these cases. It says, "Follow me for more recipes." And for those of you listening, do not do that.
Yeah.
You have to be safe and stick to the data provided by various manufacturers, or the data that you found is safe, and etc. Right? So, like, for example, I'm going to tell the story on this podcast. So when I first got into reloading and shooting, I was competing fairly heavily in IPSC pistol shooting and IDPA pistol shooting. And I was spending a boatload of money on 9mm factory ammo. And I said, enough's enough. So I found this Dylan on CanadianGunNuts.com, Gunnuts with a Z, Z for Canadians. I bought a set of dies and had a bunch of brass and components kicking around. So I went out and bought a brand of powder from Hodgdon called Tight Group. And the powder it's a disc type powder. And in 9mm with a manually articulating progressive press like I have, if you're not paying attention, because I was reloading election night 2014. Okay.
Oh, this
story. And so I wanted to load 20 rounds of just blaster ammo, and I wanted to see if it'll cycle. So again, I'm taking my time and I'm doing the stuff, but then I'm got a TV in the corner and I'm watching the Eastern Canada go red, and I'm like, I start getting white hot, and I'm like, this is bullshit. What's going on? And I kind of step away, come back, and start reloading, pound out the other 20 rounds. Anyway, go to the range the next day to cycle them, and I rack the first mag in, and I go 1, 2, the first 10 great, drop the mag out, rack the next 10 in, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, and I was shooting a Smith & Wesson M&P Pro at the time, and props to them because the gun did its job. It locked up tight and didn't cause me any damage except for the fact that I was picking powder out of my face for a week. But what happened was, with the disc powder Tight Group that I was using, it's very easy to compress a load. And what happened is the Dylan has an auto throw charge, powder charge on it, which means you kind of dial it up and it drops a predetermined amount of powder into the case as you're articulating that shell plate around. Anyway, what happened was I got distracted. Okay. Came back
swearing at the TV.
and didn't realize that I already had a powder charge in one of the rounds, and I didn't articulate that shell plate and dropped another powder charge in. And when you're reloading, there's a min load, a min recommended load, and a max recommended load. And there's a reason they do that. And I was using a Hornady book, and the max load was showing for whatever projectile I was using was 4.7 grains, I think, of Tight Group. And so I double charged it with 9 point whatever grains in it. And Tight Group is very easy to compress when you seat that bullet in. And so when I went to the first 10, great, 1, 2, 3, 4, boom, and the gun, it essentially the projectile or the cartridge essentially exploded and vaporized. I actually ended up taking the gun apart, and the piece of brass that was left. So if you're looking at a clock, it was from 12 till 3 was all the brass that was left, and it was fused to the inside of the barrel. It was there was so much pressure there, and the mag shot straight down to the ground, smacked my foot, blew out the extractor on the pistol, and cracked the slide and cracked the frame. Okay, so that was an $800 fuck up on my end because I wasn't paying attention.
Oh, gun wasn't salvageable?
No, God, no. There's nothing.
Oh, that sucks.
But
at least you walked away from her.
Well, exactly. And like I said, the way the gun's designed, when there's an excessive amount of PSI pressure applied to it, it'll lock up tight. Like, you won't be able to get it. I had to take it to the concrete and beat the shit out of it with a hammer to just get the slide off the frame on a plastic frame. Okay. So, but I was very lucky, and I learned my lesson very early on in my shooting career that, you have to pay attention. That's why people say, do not drink alcohol while you are reloading. Wear safety glasses. while you're reloading. I know Kurt's like, fuck it, but there's a reason.
And I've been doing it for 22 years though too. So
yeah,
sorry.
Pay attention. Don't be distracted. One of the first upgrades I did after that was purchase a light that goes in the middle of my die, my tool head that holds my dies, that I can see now directly into that section of the shell plate where it's dropping powder. And so I can physically see that I got powder each stage, right? So now I'm not going to ever have that problem again because I learned the hard way. And hopefully if I can save one person that's listening to this from doing it, I've done my due diligence, right? So anyway,
that's take reloading seriously.
Very seriously, and safety is number one. And pay attention. Don't fuck around. Make sure the kids are in bed. If you got kids, if you're in school, make sure all your homework's done. Whatever the case may be, don't watch Game of Thrones or whatever the kids are watching on TV now. Don't watch the news. Just sit down, put your earbuds in if you want to listen to music, and just go to work. And when you start something, finish it when you're reloading. That's the big thing.
That's pretty big too, Sean, for sure.
So
that's a good
in terms
story.
of getting, it's fucking wild.
Yeah.
Glad you're all right. But,
I'm still not okay. I'm a little mental.
You weren't before that though.
That's right.
So in terms of like designing your loads or shooting these matches and stuff, like how much does the environmental factors like temperature, humidity, elevation, like how much do you consider, and like how do those considerations affect like how you shoot?
It factors in pretty big. It all depends on how far you're shooting. With with a high powered rifle, most centerfire rifles, most centerfire rifles that you would compete with, I suppose, in long range games. You generally don't get affected too much out to about 300 yards. Beyond that, environmentals have quite a bit of effect on your bullet. Now, not to say that there's no effect within 300 yards, but you won't see it quite as much. So if you're shooting at 300 yards with let's say a 308 with an efficient bullet, like a 175 Match King or something like that, you're not going to see a lot of effect of wind. Say you've got a 20 kilometer an hour wind coming from your left side. It'll blow it off a bit, but very minimally. You get that same 20 kilometer an hour wind, even if it's just at your shooting position, out at 800 yards, that initial push on the bullet right at your firing position, or within that first 100 yards, let's say, is going to have a big effect, because you push something this much here, 800 yards is going to be this much. It's just magnified that much more, right? Temperature and humidity come into play too. Temperature with powders. If you have a powder that's not what they call temperature stable, like a ball powder, like let's say Hodgdon BLC2 or Winchester 760 or something like that. Temperature variations can have quite a large effect on those powders. You get more temperature stable powders like a Hodgdon 4350 or something like that. The effect is still there, but it's a great degree less. Humidity comes into play. That when the air is more humid, it's more dense. There's more drag on that bullet, right? Generally speaking, you can shoot in the winter with less elevation than you can in the summer, because in the winter, especially when you're, let's say, minus 20 Celsius, there's not a lot of moisture in the air, right? It's nice and crisp, and there's less drag on that bullet. So you don't need as much elevation to get out to 800 meters or wherever you're shooting, or elevation adjustment, I should say. I should clarify, as you do in the summer, because in summer there's lots of moisture in the air. There's more drag on that bullet. Do you look at this at like the
actual loading side of things, or do you go into the match and or practice, or when you're actually shooting and say, okay, it's X degrees out, I got to adjust the elevation this much?
There's some sorcery there. It depends on some of these guys that.
Sorry.
What's that? Sorry.
That's the game, right? You need to have those skills down pat, so when you do show up to the firing line, you can adjust accordingly because you know what your bullet's going to do in various conditions, right?
If you keep good enough records in that, for sure. Where guys really run into trouble is say Sean loads in Regina. What he knows to be true at Regina, these are his results. He's got this target that shot really well. So that's the load I'm using. Kurt said, don't change it for the life of me. So I'm not going to change it. But Sean goes to, let's say Texas for a PRS match. What's it doing down there? You have no idea. Right now it's like when I developed that load, it was probably minus 5, 8, something like that. Well, down in Texas, it's going to be plus 20 maybe, and different elevation. That has a huge effect on your load. I guess it's something I didn't tell Sean when I developed this load. Maybe in the summertime we better check that load again because I built it. I built it with Sean elected to buy Hodgdon 4350 powder, which is a fairly temperature stable powder, so he should be good. But we should check it anyways. But anyways, you go way down south to a different climate, and that climate is going to have different effect on that proven load that he proved in his area, sort of thing, right? Different humidity, different density, altitude, depending on their altitude. Like we're at somewhere around 1,600 feet here above sea level. Well, let's say he goes to Colorado or something, where they're way up high. There's the air is less dense there. He may be dealing with, his original dope says to get out to 800 meters, he needs 7.2 mils elevation adjustment. Here, he may only need 6 down there.
Or if it's not even going to Texas, like if I go shoot a match in Canmore and you're up in the mountains, that's going to make a world of difference because like you said, the higher the elevation, the lighter the air is, the less drag you're going to get on the bullet. And or the match, for example, could have the stage where you are elevated and you're shooting down at a target, because that does happen west of Calgary there. That you have to take that into account. You're not just shooting you're at one height, your target's at another height. You're not just shooting in a straight line, you're shooting down, which changes everything. Or you don't do this, if you're shooting up too, that changes things, but you always want to know where that bullet goes, right? Mm-hmm. That's you're always responsible for that. So
other thing, are you saying there's something west of Calgary? Sorry, Stelford, I'm in BC. I was gonna ask as well though, because we started touching about all these matches. Now, what are some of there's actual long distance shooting organizations, shooting competitions? Because we talked about the 3 guns, the IPSC, and all that stuff in previous episodes. For long distance shooting, what do you guys have? Where do you guys go?
Well, there's always F class throughout Canada, right?
What is that?
F class is Farquharson is the guy that, if you wanted to get it into history, it was always, what was it? DCRA, Dominion Canada Rifle Association. They shoot out to 1,000 yards, and it's all static. Like you get to the shoot line, and your target is I think they go 300, 600, 900, and 1,000. I'm not really familiar with F class, but you shoot each of those stages as a group. There's no
variation in between.
Right. You don't go 3, 6, 9, and 1,000 all in one go. It's one distance at each stage. Mm-hmm. So that's prevalent across Canada. Dominion Canada Rifle Association, now mostly referred to as F class. Now, just last year, Rob Furlong brought in the King of 2 Miles competition. Last year was the inaugural year for it. They've been doing it down in the States for a while now. They've been doing it in France for a while. First year was 2020.
These are American organizations, or that second one that's an American organization.
I think the King of 2 Miles originated in the U.S. I think,
and that's Americans trying to shoot as far as our snipers do currently, right?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah,
right.
That's right. Here, what else is there? There's PRS is starting to become more prevalent now.
PRS stands for
Precision Rifle Series. Yeah.
Precision Rifle Series.
Yeah.
And that's coast to coast as well?
Yes. It's been a little bit slower to catch on in Western Canada. In Ontario, they've been doing it for 3 years now, something like that, I think. And it's catching on really quite well there. Damn it, Sean, what's that one in Alberta? Why am I drawing a blank right now? The PRS. Saprel. Southern Alberta. Yeah, that's right. Southern Alberta Precision Rifle League. That one's growing quite a lot, quite quickly. It's reports are it's a very good match. Sean and I are planning on attending that one this year. It's reasonably close. Oh, that's right too. Yeah.
What makes a
Go ahead.
Sorry, what makes a good match versus like something that you're less interested in?
Well, what are you talking now? Are you talking F class? Are you talking PRS? Are you talking rimfire PRS?
Just like in general. Like, I mean, what makes something exciting to you guys? Like, in your opinion?
To me, and I think Sean probably shares this thought. What really makes a match great is the people there. That we talked on our last podcast with a couple of guys that we went quite in depth with this precision rifle community seems to be so welcoming and helpful. For the most part, people in that discipline seem to like the new people coming in and if you're humble enough to say we really don't know what the hell we're doing, but we'd like to participate, people are more than willing to here's my $5,000 rifle, try it out, just get out and participate. That to me makes a fantastic match. I give a shit what's downrange.
True.
If the people there are accommodating, friendly, team players kind of thing.
Make it fun.
Make it fun. Nobody's there to win top prize of $10,000. You never see that, right? So you take that kind of thing out of the equation, and it becomes about the people.
Yeah, and it's a community and it's a culture. But one caveat I'd like to add to that, being the baseline foundation for whatever sport you're shooting, whether it's pistol, rifle, handgun, shotgun, is the people. But also, if you have a variability in stages, if you have a creative match director, that'll make that extremely fun, right? If instead of just laying on the ground and shooting something far away, maybe you have to brace on a tank trap, or you have to engage the target from a special barricade or a position you're not adequately trained on to be able to do that, right? Like for IPSC, whenever I was designing stages, I'd try and make something just funky that'll put somebody out of their comfort zone and challenge them a little bit.
That's big, Sean.
Do something like that and make it fun instead of just sitting there blasting away at it's a static target. Maybe you have a moving target, or you got a steel popper, or you got whatever the case is. And that's where other competitions for people that can't necessarily afford a precision centerfire gun, matches like Canadian Rimfire Precision Series or Outlaw Rimfire Precision Series or the X22 series or something like that, where you can get into a rimfire platform and shoot your dad's 1022 and show up and get there and have that fun, because you got match directors that are making some fun stages where whatever the case is, whatever the story is, you can have fun. Like there was an IPSC stage where I don't know if you've seen the movie Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx, and there's one scene where some hooligans rob Tom Cruise's bag, and there's a pretty accurate gunfight scene in there with a pistol, where it says the one guy says I can't remember what he says, but he says something funny and he holds the gun sideways. He's like, "Ugh." And Tom Cruise is like, okay, what? And the stage was, you follow the movie scene, right? And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, like things like, and I'll send you guys the link to the scene after.
Yeah.
But things like that just make it fun and exciting, and talking trash is big too in a fun way.
Yeah.
Where you're bugging guys, trying to get in their heads a little bit, and like, oh, you don't screw this up, Dave. You're gonna fuck this up, and oh yeah, okay, thanks, buddy.
Hey, shooter. Hey, shooter.
I think I've seen a still of, like the scene in the film. I don't think I've seen the film, but is Tom Cruise wearing like a jacket or something?
Like a gray coat, and he draws.
Yeah, because I've seen a picture of that on one of the gun pages, and the caption was that this scene was so accurately done that firearms instructors are showing it to students.
Yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Because Tom Cruise, I mean, he's an old guy now, but I mean, he goes all out in his films now. Like when he's climbing that tower in Mission Impossible in Dubai or whatever, he's climbing it.
Yeah. Well,
Right.
there's another scene in the 1995 classic movie Heat, where Val Kilmer's in a gunfight with a commando fully auto M4 style, and he runs the gun dry and reloads within half a second, like drops a mag, new one in, and they show that scene in Marine firearms and the Marines firearms training, saying if Val Kilmer can do this in a movie, you can do it just as better, right? It's crazy, and little tidbits like that when you bring it into matches just add another level of fun and excitement to it. That especially when you get that first adrenaline dump. Like everyone's always scared shitless to show up to a match. I was when I shot my first IDPA match here in Regina with my M&P range kit. I showed up and I was like, oh, this is going to suck. I'm so scared. What's going to happen? And then it's like, no, you get that adrenaline dump and you're like, oh, can I go again? Let's do this again. Like, this is fun, The same thing goes with PRS or whatever you're shooting, right? And that's why we do the sport we do. So,
yeah. One thing that's
a big thing. Sorry, go ahead.
One thing I've done in matches I've put on is, I call it pickup rifle. Remember in hockey, you threw all your sticks into center ice and then just toss sticks out, right? Well, we don't toss rifles, but, draw numbers. Every rifle gets a number and you draw numbers and you shoot somebody else's rifle. And there's two things that happen out of that. You learn about somebody else's rifle, how it fits, all that kind of stuff, that ammunition, whether it's dope is right, whether it fits you, all that kind of stuff. And all the shit talk that happens after. Your rifle sucks my ass or whatever, right? You blame the fact that you missed all the targets on the guy's rifle. So, that stuff like that to make it fun, to get guys' minds off of that straight winning, that seriousness that I gotta show everybody what I can do kind of thing. Fuck it. Pick up somebody else's rifle and go for a stage. Let's have some fun and get away from the serious crap.
That sounds like a pretty good. That sounds like a pretty cool twist to try. Like I know,
yeah,
I've heard of key parties. I think that's something different. But I know when you go to bike shows and stuff like that or motorcycles, everybody's always just googling what everybody else has, what's everybody else riding.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of cool to if you're so dialed in on your rifle,
and
shoot something else. It's got to feel so fucking weird, I guess.
Yeah. As long as you don't leave anything on the rifle, that's pretty key.
Well, if you leave
code.
drill on it, if you drill on somebody else's rifle, I think they might be a little excited about that.
Yeah, leave some COVID on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not so COVID friendly right now.
Yeah.
So we talked about ammo. We talked about scope. I mean, hand loading not absolutely necessary, but it's. I guess it's one of those. Like about 10 years ago, I got into straight razor shaving.
Oh yeah.
Like you were saying, like, oh, I'm going to save so much money on razors. I got to buy a strop. I got to buy razors. I got to buy honing stones. I got to buy this, that, right? But to me, it adds an extra level of difficulty because if I don't sharpen my razor, and I do my head with them as well, and I know you're going to ask nothing below the belt.
No, I wasn't gonna ask.
Yeah. But if I don't sharpen that razor, I'm gonna have a shit shave.
Yeah.
So I can imagine the same thing with your hand loading. It's just you add that extra bit of difficulty, but when you put that bullet next to the next one, that's on you, right? That's not somebody in a factory that did that. That's you.
That's right. Yeah. Now, saying that, factory ammunition is getting better all the time, especially in good rifles that are assembled really well. Especially in a custom rifle, you get into ammunition like Black Hills ammunition, stuff like that. Shoot really well. Lapua factory ammunition shoots extremely well. Even the Federal Gold Medal match, stuff like that. In a good rifle, they all shoot really well, but you can always eke out that extra tenth or quarter or whatever by hand loading. There's no question.
Yeah.
It's like fitting that dress that you bought last week there, Swally.
I know.
You go to a custom tailor, and that dress is going to fit way better than just one off.
I just slit it up the leg. It's fine.
Yeah, I'll bet.
So we did scopes, we did ammo. We talked about do's and don'ts with ammo loading. What about rifles? How much does that matter? Or can you basically, we talked about entry-level rifle or entry-level scope pricing, entry-level rifles.
Right.
Will basically any rifle maker have a good enough rifle to take you out to, say, a kilometer?
It depends.
Yeah. Yes and no. I was gonna say it depends on the game, but if you're just static going out to 1,000 meters,
or just any generic number from assuming somebody was asking you the question that they knew what they were talking about, because I have no idea.
Well, there's a lot of good rifle makers out there, factory options, and you can do it with so many of them. There are some that won't, no matter what you do, even if you do hand load. But for the most part, every company that puts out a target rifle, let's say, will make one rifle at least that will get you there. Okay. There's no question. Now, will it hold 1 minute angle out there, or will it hold a half-minute angle? Will it shoot 2 minutes of angle? Like, if you think about it, F class, I think. Oh God, maybe I dug myself a hole here. I can't remember what the target size is. I think it's.
I don't know.
Actually, F class, I think the target size all the way out is 1 minute of angle, I believe. So, is that right? No, that's not right.
I don't know. But it's in my opinion, it's the same as optics. You buy once, cry once.
That's right.
Opinion. And friends don't let friends buy Ruger precision rifles.
I've seen those things perform quite well.
Yeah, I'm just.
With a custom rifle, out to 1,000 yards, if you're doing what you need to, it should get you there every time. With a factory rifle, as good as factory rifles can get, unless you're going to that factory's custom shop, to get you to 1,000 yards, it should do it probably 70 to 80% of the time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you kind of understand where I'm going there. There is a difference.
You need that custom, eh?
Yeah.
You need the custom, whatever barrel fitment.
If you wanted to shoot into that, then you need that custom rifle. If you're okay with hitting that 24-inch gong at 1,000 meters rather than the 12-inch, get a factory rifle if that's what your budget allows, or if that's what turns your crank or whatever. Right?
So Sean, being new to this or newer, what road did you go? How many
Well,
times did you cry on this one?
So I originally had a Mossberg MVP in 308, which is a 16, I think, or 18-inch barrel. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But just a shorty little one. And the first time I went to Kurt's range, the boys from Call Sign 66 were there. And I said, hey, guys, if I show up with this to a course, is that going to be okay? He's like, yeah, you can use it. You probably shouldn't because it's not going to get you out there. But, you can do what you can. And I was making hits very easily at your range there, Kurt, at what, 650, and I think I made a hit at 800 too with it with my hand loads. But I quickly learned that there are certain do's and don'ts with rifles, and one of them being you need the longer barrel, you need a nice smooth action makes a big difference, and your optic, right? But
you know what? Listen, the bone stock Mustang can compete to a certain level, I suppose, but it won't run in the Indy. It's a great car. It's a fast car, maybe, I don't know, or the Hellcat or something like that. I don't know what you want to use for an analogy, but
you're not going to show up to the Monaco F1 with it, right?
Right. Right. You can do great things with it to a point. Beyond that point, you need something. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Isn't that what Mustang drivers always do anyway? That's about it.
Fuck yeah.
They don't drag race, they just do donuts.
Sounds like Dave drives a Mustang, I think.
Yeah. Narrowly avoiding crowds.
All right, so we've got the F class, and what was the other one in Canada?
PRS.
The F class and the PRS. If you wanted to get into either of those, could you do that with a factory rifle?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
factory loads.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You bet. Yeah,
And
there's nothing stopping you from doing that. It's just like I said, there's going to be limitations.
Okay.
Yeah, but you can definitely compete.
So what would be an entry level investment for that? I mean, ammunition, it is what it is. Your rifle under 1,500.
Yeah, as much as Sean doesn't want to, maybe doesn't want to admit that Ruger PRS is pretty okay.
Mm-hmm.
It'll get you in the game, which is the biggest thing, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Get in the game for starters. You can always piss around with equipment afterwards. A Tikka T3 Varmint is another great buy as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure where they're at MSRP right now, but I think they're somewhere around that $1,500. I've in my experience, I've only ever met one Tikka rifle that didn't like to shoot. They do make a good quality firearm for sure.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of ours has a Remington 783, and he was he getting out to 1,000, Kurt, of yours?
Who was that? Oh, was that Matt? Oh, no, not quite. But he did shoot fairly well. And he bought, I can't remember the brand of that ammunition, but it was not Target ammunition, I'll say that. But he was pretty damn consistent out to 600 yards.
So you can do it for sure, with a cheaper platform, but if you go with the Remington 700 pattern, anything, you're going to be in pretty good shape. Or like Kurt said, a Ruger precision rifle, Savage, Bergara. We haven't even talked about Bergara. Bergara makes a cheaper 700 style platform that is high quality. It's great. In fact, I got one sitting right there. So that's the rimfire model, the B14R, but the Bergara B14 is a great platform. It's north of that $1,000 mark, but it's not a baseline model either. It's they're very good rifles. So Savage makes good ones, like Mike says, the Savage 110 Elite Precision, Ruger Precision. Savage, the B22 Precision for rimfire CRPS, that's a great option. Everybody has their factory patterns, right? That they can get you out there. It's just it just depends how deep you want to go down the rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. So
that's it. Yeah.
And it seems like there's a wealth of knowledge. You just need to know how to find. Like the precision guys really feels like it's a community within community in the gun world. Like, because once you open that door, they're like you're talking about the environmental factors, like Dave mentioned, the loads that you guys were talking about, the glass.
Mhm.
Like it's not just go to Cabela's, buy a rifle, and okay, what kind of scope should I put on this? And the salesman gives you one, and then
Right.
okay, go hunt.
It's a little deeper than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we got rifle picks, we got scopes, we got ammo. Oh, I was going to ask. Okay, so if you want to start hand loading, where do you buy all this stuff?
Well, there's lots of places. As much as I don't endorse this ever, but there's lots of places online that you get it. There's lots of vendors around Canada. Personally, I like to support local.
Mhm.
Shout out to Ben at Extreme Range Outfitters in Saskatoon here. He's
Daryl at TNT Gunworks in Regina.
there. It is. They're the source of most of our components. Cabela's also has some, but they're more geared to they're more a hunting store than anything, right?
Yeah.
But you can still pick up a press there. North Pro Sports here in Saskatoon carries presses and all the components, powder, bullets, cases, all that kind of stuff. There are lots of places around Canada. You just
because this is something that I different people, different strokes, different folks.
Yep.
Some people like to read about this and like really educate themselves. I like to like explain it to me like I'm 5. Like walk me through it, and then I can ask questions if there's something that comes up that I don't understand. Because I remember when I was learning, I learned to work on motorcycles before I was a mechanic very briefly. And when I was reading manuals, I was reading what to do, and then okay, what's that word? And then I was like, I have to go Google that word. I click Google image, and I'm like, okay, what the hell is that? What the fuck's a manifold? Right? And then okay, that's what that looks like on my bike, and then I can continue on reading. I just found it a little bit frustrating because I didn't have a mentor.
And if say you can't find a mentor and you go to your local gun shop, any of your local gun shops across Canada, they're more than happy to talk you through, what they think you should be getting. And it's, but now, if you're like, hey, what does this mean? What's the lands of a bullet? What is a grain of powder? What is rifle twist rate? Certain questions that you wouldn't necessarily know without asking those questions, and if never be scared to ask a fellow gunny to talk about guns, to ask a question, because they're more than willing to, vomit their entire story on you. And, that's why I started a podcast, right? Said, hey, I want to talk about guns.
Everyone's been there before too, where you didn't know fucking anything, right? So you're happy to give back and keep on growing the community, right? So
well, and that's where I've wanted to partner with Dave and your organization at the Canadian University Shooting Federation, because I see a need in schools, and not just schools, but post-secondary schools to start ingraining that knowledge there, especially in programs like in Regina here. There's a huge engineering aspect there, and guns, people say like, oh, they look at Star Wars and call those guys nerds, and then people look at precision rifles and they're like, that's the Star Wars of, or Game of Thrones or whatever. We are nerds in every aspect of it, and we're more than willing to talk about it. So, and that's where I wanted to join with your organization as a field officer to help spread that message and spread my nerdism around.
This is like, hey, I'm going to the range. Okay, I got my rifle, got my ammunition, got my calculator.
Well, yeah, exactly. And engineers are more than like the reason I like guns is it's a machine made by man, and it is so cool. It is the science behind making something go far away. Just the science and the way it's came from, the 1700s to today is just fascinating to me, and the history behind it, and John Moses Brown, and God rest his soul, and all that stuff. It's history and lore and development behind firearms. Like I'm a huge war geek too, and
same.
The development, like for Canadian military, where's that poster? Here's the poster of the development of Canadian military firearms from the late 1800s to today. Stuff like that, gets me going and gets the creative juices flowing. And, that's why I wanted to partner with your organization. So props to you guys, right? So
Okay, so good segue to that. We're gonna talk about the field officer thing a little bit. So Sean, you're coming on as a field officer?
I'd like to. I guess Dave kind of told me that I am. So
nice.
Yeah. Well, no, happy to have you, and you too, Rooster, if you're interested. I mean, once things get back to normal, like what better way to get young people into precision rifle, like your sports, than get them while they're young and impressionable and interested in trying out new things, right? So hopefully, like we got somebody, the U of S club kind of died off there for a bit, but we got another guy who's looking at getting it restarted as soon as all the lockdown bullshit's over. So
Dave, you
should be something in Saskatchewan.
You should get me that guy's contact, and between the two of us, I'm sure we can get that going again, for sure. I've already kind of started in. I've got one young guy, actually my girlfriend's son. He's 20 in university. He's actually going to be on the practice team, our King of 2 Miles practice team this year, shooting 308 as far as he can get, so I can learn how to spot better.
Fucking right.
Yeah, so we'll get his friends involved in that too. So, but yeah, we'll talk off air about this fella.
All right. Absolutely. I think that's an episode right there. That's hour 16. I had a feeling it'd be a good one. You guys seem like pretty chatty guys, which is always good.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got our rifles. We talked about the scopes, the ammos, the loading, organizations, focal plane, which I already forgot what it is. Do you guys want to prop up your podcast a little bit?
Do we want to Of course.
Yeah. What is it? Where can we find you?
So we are the First Focal Plane podcast. We are available on all the podcast networks: Google, Stitcher, Spotify, blah, 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 Apple. We also have a pretty kick-ass website, that's www.ffpp, Foxtrot, Pablo.
Charlie.
There you go.
We'll post it. We'll post it.
Yeah, I was gonna say just fucking write it down because I'm gonna try a lot of F's here.
But for everybody listening, ffpp.ca, we have a blog section. You can listen to all our episodes on there. But we also have a blog section where Kurt dives into hand loading, and we have some other contributors that contribute pretty cool stuff on there. We're on Facebook and Instagram, First Focal Plane Podcast, and check us out on there. We go live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, Saskatchewan, because we don't celebrate daylight savings time like you backwards people. So
fair enough. All right. Sponsors, Dave, you want to give them a hello, and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, Cabela's Outdoors Fund, huge. If you're shopping at Cabela's, make sure to round up, and by doing that, you're helping support organizations such as ourselves. Beretta, of course, since 1526. Vortex, happy to have them on. Vortex Nation, very relevant to this podcast. And and Stittsville Shooting Ranges, big supporter. They help out both the Carleton Shotgun Team, the Carleton Firearms Association. So as well as supporting us as well. So big shout out to them.
Awesome. All right. Well, I want to say thank you to our guests, Sean and Rooster. I'll hit same as like I said earlier. I'm gonna kill the recording. Stay online. I'll send another link, and then we'll do a little bit of chat, swear a little bit more. I just wanted to, again, thanks to Dave for starting the CUSF. We can be found at cusf.ca. Our podcast or videocast, Down the Barrel with the CUSF, on Spotify, on Apple, on all your usual, as well as on YouTube and on Facebook. So we're looking at we don't do every Tuesday. We're looking at about every second weekend. We've got bit of a routine now, so
nice.
I'll see the viewers and listeners in about 2 weeks. Yeah,
thanks for having us.
All right, and I'll see you guys in about 60 seconds.